Hello everyone, welcome to another series of ThoughtData's learning session on Enterprise 360. In this session, we're going to take a look at how to integrate Enterprise 360 Unified IT Monitoring Solution with Okta Single Sign-On. Let's get started. So first thing we have to make sure is to get an Okta account. So in your organization, if you have Okta enabled for single sign-on, you will have your Okta admin privileges. Once you log into the Okta account, you have to set up users for your Okta. And the first place to start with the integration is to start with the applications. As you can see here on the left hand side, you can go to the applications and you can start by adding an application. So you create an app integration in your Okta, create an app integration. Choose the OIDC OpenID Connect, which is OA Auth 2 based authentication for single sign-on, and click Next. And here you have to choose the application as web application because Enterprise 360 is a web-based application. Choose web application. You will be required to provide an application name and leave everything else as default. And this is pretty important. You have to provide the sign-in redirect URIs and sign-out redirect URIs. Now this happens to be your Enterprise 360's URL, the web URL on which you are accessing the Enterprise 360. So I have already added Enterprise 360 right here. Let me go back to the application and show you how it actually looks like. Basically what you need to add is the redirect URL. So basically what you need to do is take the URL of your Enterprise 360 as you can see here and append it with /login and /okta, and that will become the sign-in redirect URI. And just give the Enterprise 360 URL as is, the entire URL, sign out redirect URI. Now it may be possible that you might have not given a DNS name for your Enterprise 360. In my example here, we have given a full DNS name. If you don't have the DNS name, just replace this string with the IP address of your Enterprise 360, and that should equally work as well. Now coming back here, so set this redirect URI and sign out redirect URI. And you can leave everything else as is, and here you need to select what kinds of users you would like to provide access to Enterprise 360 from your Okta. So right now I'm actually choosing allow everyone in your organization to access, but if you have created groups and in Okta, and if you want to limit access to certain types of users in Okta, you could do that as well. So for simplicity, I'm just choosing allow everyone in your organization to access and just save this application. Right now, once you save this application, you will see the application is created like this. You can edit the application, right? So right now I created the application here, and you will get what is called as a client ID, and you will also get what is called as a client secret. So you need to copy this information and keep it because this will be required for you to use the configuration in Enterprise 360 side. So copy this client ID, and once you see here, you can see the client secret, enable the client secret, and just copy this client secret and keep it with you. Right now, this is first step which you need to start. So the integration on the Okta side is actually ready, and let's come back to Enterprise 360 and see what you need to do on the Enterprise 360 side. So first and foremost you need to do is you have to log into your Enterprise 360. Choose the PuTTY console and log into Enterprise 360. Go to etc grafana.ini and edit the configuration file. And in this configuration file, search for Okta. There is a section for Okta, right? So you can you will see that all these lines are disabled by default with a semicolon right here. And you have to start configuring your Okta configuration in Enterprise 360 in this file. So enable these parameters. By default name is Okta, and by default enabled will be false, make it as true, and allow sign up, make it as true, and client ID. Now this is where you need to provide the client ID which you have picked up from the Okta configuration. So this is predominantly this one. So if you go back to the Okta configuration, as I mentioned, in the application there is a client ID, right? So you need to copy this client ID, and that is what you need to provide right here. So provide the client ID. Likewise, there is a client secret. So if you go back here into Okta, you can see there is a client secret. So you should copy this and bring it back to the configuration and provide it as a client secret. Scopes, by default it will be open ID, profile, email, groups. Just leave it as is and just enable it. Authentication URL and token URL, right? So now this one is basically the actual URL of your instance of your Okta, right? So if you go back to Okta here, you can see on the Okta, you can see this instance of your Okta which you are actually using for your administration and IAM and everything. So this information is what you need to provide in the configuration file. So if you notice here, so basically it's HTTPS. So this is the DNS name of our Okta server which is running in the cloud. So that's the information what you provide here, /OAuth2/v1/authorize. So you can append this information to the authentication URL parameter. Likewise, for the token URL, provide the URL followed by /OAuth2/v1/token. Likewise, for the API URL, just the same thing, /OAuth2/v1/userinfo, right? And these parameters, allowed domains, allowed groups, and role attributes and paths are for advanced configuration. If you want to restrict the authentication from Enterprise 360 for specific kinds of domains and groups which you have set up in Okta, that is required for that. Now for simplicity, I have just left it as null. So we just need to enable this and leave it as null. So that is the important piece of configuration which you need to do on the Enterprise 360 side. And save this configuration file and come outside. Right now I have already saved it, so I'm just quitting it and coming outside. Now once you have done this, you have to restart the UI service of Enterprise 360. And what you need to do is, in the PuTTY console of Enterprise 360, just go to service grafana server/restart. So just run this command, service grafana server/restart, and it will restart the UI service of Enterprise 360. Now there are a few more things which we need to do before we go to Enterprise 360 and test this thing out, how it actually works. Now let's come back to Okta. Once you are done that with Okta, again come back to your applications area, open up the application which you have just added for Enterprise 360, go to assignments. Here is where you need to add users whom you want to provide access to Enterprise 360 with the Okta integration. So right now in this use case example, I have just one user in my Okta belonging to my domain, and I have assigned that particular user to this application and provided access to that particular user. So in this case, you're using info@thoughtdata.com as an example user. And this is one thing which you need to do. Now once you have done this, for multi-factor authentication, you are required to download the Okta application, and this you will see actually when you log in for the first time in your organization. If you have already set up Okta, so if you have set up multi-factor authentication using either push notification on the mobile app or by using phone-based, SMS-based multi-factor authentication, you have already done that in your organization, and that will also be required if you have done that. So if you have not done that, when you try to log in from Enterprise 360 to Okta, it will ask you to enable that. So one of the things has to be enabled for multi-factor authentication and single sign-on. So you have to just download the Okta Verify application from the Android and Apple Store, install it on your mobile phone, and you can go to App Store and download it. And once you launch the application in your Android and iPhone, it will ask you for the username, and the username what you provide is exactly the same username what you are going to use to log into Enterprise 360. So once you provide this username and password, it will set up the mobile app for multi-factor authentication, and you can pick and choose if you want to authenticate via push notification from the app with a code, or you can choose SMS notification and provide your mobile number and set up the authentication parameters. So that will be very much required for you to do single sign-on, and that will be a common process for any application which you want to do single sign-on with Okta, which you might have already done. For example, for Office 365 or any other applications in your IT environment. So that's pretty much it. Once you do that, your Okta is ready for integrating with Enterprise 360. So once you launch Enterprise 360, after you have done the service restart of the UI service, now you will be able to see a new option to sign in with Okta, right? So this will come as a part of the integration, and just click on sign in with Okta. You can now see that it is directly taking you to your Okta authentication. It is asking you for username and password. Now remember that this will be asked only for the first time. So once you log into Okta, and every subsequent login to Enterprise 360 will be based on single sign-on, and this is only for the first time. So right now I have to give my username and password, the username which I have associated and allowed access to the Enterprise 360 application in Okta. So that is the info@thoughtdata.com. Say next. As you can see here, it is asking for a push notification. So as I mentioned, you would have already established a mobile app for Okta Verify on your mobile phone, and you have set up for this particular username. Now it has come to my mobile phone, and I am going to send the push notification from my mobile phone. So it has come to my Okta notification, and in the Okta mobile application you can say yes for the push notification for the mobile phone, and you will be logged in. As you can see, the authentication is now successful, and you are logged in into Enterprise 360 with successful authentication from Okta along with multi-factor authentication, right? Now I'm going to log out. You can see here I have been logged in as Manjunath Venkatram, which is the name which I have set up in my Okta user. Now I'm going to log out, and if I click now sign in with Okta, you can now notice it is not asking for any user credentials, because this is now fully working with single sign-on. And what happens in the background is Enterprise 360 has cached that username, and it passes the username to Okta, get the authentication done, and with the multi-factor authentication with the app and everything, all the authentication is succeeding, and it is automatically allowing you to log into Enterprise 360 with the single sign-on. So this is the illustration of how you integrate Enterprise 360 Unified IT Monitoring Solution with Okta single sign-on. Now as you can notice here, the users by default are logged in as users with viewer privilege. What it means is you can see all the dashboards, but you don't have admin privileges in Enterprise 360. Now you can actually set this thing properly. You can actually sign out and log into Enterprise 360 using the regular username and password mechanism. Right now I'm going to log into Enterprise 360 as an admin user, not using Okta, but with regular authentication. And I'm going to go back to my users here as an admin inside Enterprise 360. Now I can notice here that a new user has been automatically added into Enterprise 360 with OAuth authentication from Okta. I click on this particular user. I see this is the username, and it has been synced with OAuth from Okta. And here you can actually change the role, right? So depending on what kind of a role you want to provide to this particular user, viewer or an editor or an admin kind of a role, you can change the role and save it. And next time when the user actually logs in, he gets that particular kind of a role. Okay, so that's the way you actually control roles for your Okta users in Enterprise 360. And that's pretty much it. So that's the way you actually integrate the solution for single sign-on. If you have any questions, feel free to send us an email to support@thoughtdata.com for any questions and clarifications. and we look forward to seeing you again in the next training video for another session on Enterprise 360. Thank you for your time.